Hello everyone, I am Rushali from Thepsi. Welcome to the 28th edition of our newsletter, The Weekly Edge, and this is Humans of VIT, and I welcome Vedant Verma, a fourth year student, and Shaolin Kataria, a third year student from VIT. So we'll be discussing today about the emergence of two-party system in India that is happening right now. So I have a few questions and we'll see how they answer it. So the first question I would like to ask Shaolin is that there are 2,300 parties registered with in India, with six national parties, and but the limelight has been totally stolen by two major parties. So don't you think Indian politics has been polarized into left and right wing?
Okay, firstly, when we say left and right wing, I think we should take into consideration the social aspect of it and then the economics of it.
True,
When we
true.
look at the economics of it, then I think we all can agree that India, all the parties are very economically left. They like to have the government controlling all the finances, all the economics of the country. And when you look at the social aspect of it, then you can see Congress, since its ancient history, has been following this minority vote bank policy, appeasing the minorities and their sentiments. And then on the other hand, BJP has been doing the opposite, which is living off the sentiments of the majority. So when you look at these two parties, they have such a wide spread of their entire ideologies and then mentality, and they have a foundation set, and then they are just growing from it year by year, and then right now the trend is more towards BJP because we had a lot of years of Congress, a lot of people saw no change, a lot of scams occurred. So then they wanted to shift their focus, and all the majority, they got sick of the minority appeasement over and over again, and they wanted to get their voice heard. And Narendra Modi became that voice, and I think that's how BJP came into power. And when you look at parties like AAP, I think that's the third party that comes to anyone's mind. That's the only party I think which is voted based on the work they do rather than what kind of what
That
section of
is
people they're
true.
going to
Yeah.
appease or work for. So, but again, would you vote for AAP for a national scale governance? Because
Um,
AAP has only proven itself
yeah,
in Delhi.
that
So
is
again, there
very
are a
true.
lot of factors that come into play. And let's just take UP for example. UP is currently governed by Yogi Adityanath. When you look at countries in Europe, when you look at countries worldwide, there are a lot of countries which are less populated than UP itself. And then we compare the entire economy of India to those countries. We just need to look at UP in four sections. You have East, West, North, and South. And then you have different kind of languages being spoken. I'm not saying they don't speak Hindi. I'm just saying they have a different tone to their voice. And even that goes a long way in determining what kind of attitude they have, what kind of ideologies they have. Some areas are very, let's say, secular. They are bonding Hindu Muslims live together. Some areas are very, let's say, radical. Hindus live in one area, Muslims live in another area, and a lot of shit happens. So all these things aside, I think it's a lot more complicated than we think. And BJP and Congress, I don't think it will take decades. It might take just decades to just overthrow either one of these parties.
True.
Vedant, what do you think?
True. I think also it's better if we segregate these parties on the basis of democratic socialism and democratic capitalism instead of um, left and right. Vedant, what do you have to say?
Wherever democracy exists, broadly, the mindset of the people is divided into two parts. The one is the voice of the majority, another is the voice of the minority, right? So, left and right has nothing to do with India as such. The left and right of the Western countries, it is totally different, right? The right wing of India is totally different from the right wing of the American on many fronts. For example, the right wing of America is totally against the like they are homophobic people. They don't like same-sex marriages and all. Whereas the right wing of India, the ancient Hindu culture have always
Yeah,
supported
Indian context allows
any
it.
kind of
Exactly.
sexuality.
Hinduism has a very vast history of
Exactly.
homosexuality.
India cannot be segregated on the basis of right or left, which is there in the Western world. In India, we have the majority versus the minority, the Hindus versus the Muslims. If you go to the northeastern states where the Christian population is more, then BJP has no say for that matter. Then they, and even the Congress have no say there. There are many various other local parties. When you go to Tamil Nadu, then again BJP and Congress is not there. And in Tamil Nadu, it is AIDMK or DMK. So in both we have the DMK. Dravid is coming, right? So they have nothing to do with Hindu, Muslim, or majority minority. In India, it's highly segregated. It depends upon state to state, district to district. So nothing like left or right. It's dependent upon the area, if I
But
say.
usually when we talk about Indian politics, since you mentioned AID, DMK and all, and you mentioned northeastern states as well, don't you think then I mean mainstream politics just covers these two parties and not the northeastern states or the southern states?
See, the mainstream politics of India, since the mainstream population of India is more of Hindi-speaking population, approximately 48 to 50% people speak Hindi, and Hindi belt has the maximum population. That is why you know only BJP or Congress, right? But Congress means what? Congress means UPA. Congress is the face of UPA, although Congress does not represent much of the seats inside the Lok Sabha or anywhere. So it's not about the Congress. It's about the parties that support Congress. The parties that support Congress. Now, if you ask to me, and if you say that whether the leaders of the left-wing parties or the communist parties or DMK support Rahul Gandhi as a face of Congress, they don't. But since they are into some kind of coalition, that is why they have to support. Otherwise, they will be kicked out from UPA.
Right.
So ideology is not like that. It's like two teams, one team of Ram, another team of Sham. So even if you don't like the Sham, you have to stay in the team of Sham, right? So that is why they support Congress. Otherwise, Congress is on the political picture that India is representing right now. Congress is standing nowhere.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. So Shaolin mentioned secularism. So I would like to ask, there is some kind of selective liberalism of the so-called Indian liberals.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you have to say? Also, do you think secularism and pluralism in Indian context are too utopian?
Okay, so firstly, talking about selective liberalism, you see a lot of times on the internet, let's say any kind of outrage happens based on some incident which occurred. So usually when the receiving side of it, the victim includes some kind of, let's say, lower caste Hindus or let's say Muslims, then the outrage is very, very, like the outrage is a lot. And then when you hear it from the viewpoint, like a year ago, I was very, let's say, like you called it, selective liberal only, but over the past 1 year, I sat back, no outrage, I've observed. And then I've talked to a lot of my friends who are pro BJP and let's say they are very, very pro majority sentiments. And then all they have to say is that when someone which is, like, say, our identity and they get hurt in the same way in which they don't get the same kind of outrage. And there are a lot of examples which exist. Let's say the Hathras case got a lot of attention, and then a similar case happened a few years later which didn't get the same attention. So all these examples build up, a kind of a frustration in the minds of the majority, and that frustration leads to hate, which is like very unhealthy for the country. But at the same time, if you look at it from a liberal point of view, it's like, when you see yourself as a part of a community, when you identify yourself as an identity, you look at other people from your community getting hurt, and then you want to defend them. You want to defend them because you see your community getting hurt like that. So from their viewpoint, it's like you can't cover all the bad things happening in the country, but what you can do is defend your community. But then again, that's
Thing happens with a Hindu, upper caste Hindu, nobody covers it. So this is some sense of discrimination that is, which is actually inbuilt in the media. The media and the academia is tending towards the left. But we have to understand, the left have to understand one thing, that the leftist ideology is for the poor, and it's for the for the people whose voice can't be heard. So ideally, the left communism ideology is for that. Even a upper caste Brahmin can be suppressed in some areas where Muslims are dominant or where Dalits are dominant. So you are being very particular with sticking with certain religion and certain caste. So that is why your opinion on any topic is getting very diluted. So people are not taking seriously the left voices. So people are not taking seriously the left media channels like NDTV and all. So this is one reason that the true liberals, the true communists are getting somewhere crushed inside these liberal pseudo liberal people who don't even know what is communism, who don't even know what is left is, so to be very practical, Pakistan is was cut off from India on the basis of religious ground, right? Mountbatten have separated Pakistan from India because Pakistan has the Muslim majority. Lord Curzon have separated Bangladesh from the East Bangladesh from the remaining Bangladesh because it was having the Muslim majority. So India, if you talk about secularism, it is utopia because there are the permanent lines of divide between Hindus and Muslims, not from the time of the Britishers, but even before that. See, basically, the medieval Muslim invaders that came to India. I am not talking about the current Muslim population. These people, you cannot compare the medieval Muslims and the modern Muslims.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
when the medieval Muslims came to India from Turkey, they were not coming to India, for celebrating Eid or something. So they came with a clear motive that we have to kill, right? And then they did a very good job. They almost massacred all the Hindus from northern Kerala. They massacred all the Hindus in the Pakistan, Afghanistan, and then they massacred Hindus from Bangladesh. They massacred Hindus and Buddhists from Myanmar. So there is a deep sense of hatred, and there is a deep sense of pain among the Hindus, which they get from the previous generation. You cannot take it away. Even the Christians, even the European Christians, have the same hatred and same pain among them because the Muslims have did it. And I'm not debating whether it was right or wrong, but it happened. So
But
secularism
see,
cannot be achieved.
yeah, as you say that this is the reason of hatred. So when you talk about hatred, I think this is the very reason that the liberals find it more convenient to defend the minorities than to defend the majority. What do you have to say, Shaolin? You wanted to say something.
Okay. Okay. So basically, there's a very basic human trait we all should possess, which is empathy. So, as Vedant already talked about how the Hindu majority has been having this years of outrage being passed on to generations and generations. Similarly, if you look at Dalits, for example, then there was a certain period of oppression for them under Brahmins. And then the same case can be valid for them that they have this outrage within them against the Brahmins.
Yeah,
And
that's
then when you
totally
look at
comparable.
women, actually, even to this day, actually, women's situation has actually never gotten better. It's just gotten better in terms of jobs and opportunities. If you look at, or some
Yeah,
political
the
position, if you
social
look at it from the
status
point
is
of
still
the
very
social status is still very
bad.
degraded. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from video, when things like all men are snakes, all these things happen, and there's an outrage from men that no, not all men. It's low-key understandable. And honestly, when you say not all men, at the same time, it's like all women, because literally everyone has faced that. If you grow up and you talk to people around you, talk to your own family members, you realize that everyone has faced that. So that gets you. And when you talk about empathy, then it's like under the same boat. They have had their own stories of oppression from different kinds of ways. So why are you, lining up against each other? Why are you not facing, turning up for a new society which brings in peace? I don't think anyone sane, when they make a judgment, let's say in some pole position, okay, so I have to pick between these three people. Let's say one is a woman, one is a Muslim, one is a Hindu. So I don't think anyone even thinks about, let's say in some club position, board position, or anything. No one thinks about their identity. They think about their work. They write down what they say. They never think about their identity. So all these things, as we keep on progressing into society and educated society, they become pretty much rudimentary. And then you just take up these like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna fill my gender in the form because they're just asking it. It's gonna simplify things. They don't really carry a toll in how you're gonna behave with someone. So I think more people get very sensitive and, let's say, apprehensive about their identity, the more problematic it becomes, because then everyone has their own problem. No one is saying that you should not follow your identity. It's like, okay, fine, be cool, be in your own comfort space. It's just, it shouldn't cross the comfort zone of others. Like Vedant mentioned, like attacking specific festivals like Diwali and then Holi. So that shouldn't be the case. If you are very much out for like pollution and everything, do everything you can within your own rights, and then I think that's about it, which you can do at a human level. So
See,
Shaolin mentioned about the identities and all. So, do you guys think that the fact that people identify with different political ideologies, does it come in the way of their national unity? Like Naxals or JNU students or AMU students, Does it hamper the nationalistic approach of these people? Vedant and then Shauli.
Yeah. See, so what happened recently? We'll go a little back when the Delhi riots were happened. So Sarjil Imam was telling that we have to cut off the northeast from Siliguri. Then the Congress leaders were in the support of the Sarjil Imam. The JNU students are saying that Kerala ko azadi milegi, Kashmir ko azadi milegi. Then again the Congress is in support of the JNU students. AMU was celebrating the birthday or something Jayanti or something of the Muhammad Jinnah. And then again the Congress was in support of the AMU students. Then recently the Galwan clash happened, and then Congress is asking questions on the army of the country. So the approach of Congress in the I don't know why they are doing so. They are the oldest party of this nation, and they should have a very strong opinion about anything.
So the basic idea which should exist is that these parties work together and build up a better nation, but that has never been the case. So Congress, as he said, will always support these issues that these certain universities, colleges, or or all these group of people bring up, because that's their vote bank. They can't go against them. They will always hold their hand, carry them wherever they want to go, and then that's their entire vote bank for the next election, because they can't leave them. And the same for BJP is that they can't really, let's say BJP tomorrow talks about something with concerns or like is only appeasing to the minority. They can't really do that because that's not their foreplay. The main game is to appease the majority. So in a way, it's very sad for a nation when both these parties are like, in no position to form a middle ground whatsoever. They are both really polar, as you mentioned, utopia kind of thing. And then they want to carry forward with their ideas. They don't want to divert whatsoever. And then that's sad, but let's see what.
Ideology, Congress had a very good ideology in the initial times. But I guess when the national leaders changed, right? I guess Indira Gandhi played a very, very important role in many of the wars, 1971 war and all. So the Congress leaders, the initial leaders were good. But right now, the guy who is leading Congress, right, Rahul Gandhi, when you speak his name, smile comes on your face. Then how can you expect party of 4 crore participants can obey what he's saying? So Congress, in a current scenario, if you look Congress closely, since I have a bit of political inclination, Congress is totally segregated. Congress is totally segregated. Nobody is obeying the national orders. Nobody is, as to answer Vishali, Congress is now totally playing the game. For example, in the Madhya Pradesh election, one MP, he says that please don't vote for Rahul Gandhi, please vote for me, right? So because of the image of Rahul Gandhi and because of the downplay that Congress have gone after the 2014, the Congress is now playing very petty politics. Being a national party, it's playing very petty politics, and this is which is very dangerous. Which is very dangerous. Congress was the party which brought the globalization, right? The economy boomed up in the 1991 period under the Manmohan Singh when he was the finance minister. So no one can question his efforts, and no one can question the work done by Congress. But right now, what Congress is doing is totally anti-national, and it has nothing to do with the national, leaders. Rahul Gandhi cannot do anything. It has to be, the reason behind is that all the communist leftist academicians and these buddhijeevis are now going inside the Congress, because somehow people of India are now aware what is CPI, what is Communist Party of India, and what is CPIM. People are now very aware about Naxals. So now these buddhijeevis of CPI and CPIM are slowly moving into Congress, and they are degrading the Congress. And this is very sad if you talk from the nationalistic point of view, because अगर एक BJP ही party रहेगी, if only BJP is the party, then it's a single party rule. It's like China or it's like Russia. Then democracy doesn't exist.
Right.
It's pretty sad, but it's happening.
Also,
Even when you talk about the educated Muslims, and let's say, most liberals actually, it's like they have a hate for BJP, but then during the election period, they're like, if not BJP, then who? And they don't want to go back to Congress at all.
Right.
Can't look at an alternative in the future.
Yes.
So BJP, either way, even with the haters or the supporters, is getting the majority anyway. So it's very detrimental when you don't have a strong opposition in the country.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are your views on the US scenario of the left, right, and center wing politics?
Okay, yeah, all right. So firstly, I'll talk about how Trump came into power actually. So, we discussed so much about, the years of frustration building up and then the BJP coming into power, the majority appeasement and all that. So when you talk about USA, the public was feeling threatened in 2016 when that entire period was going on. There were concerns over ISIS, there were concerns over Iran, there were concerns over security and all the immigrants, the crime rates increasing. They wanted an authoritarian. And Donald Trump, like it or not, is an authoritarian. He speaks bluntly, he speaks for the people, he speaks without any, let's say, being aware of something like political correctness. He will speak what he wants. So they wanted that image on the front representing them so that they have someone in power they can trust on. Okay, this guy will keep us safe. Now, coming to this election, a lot of people raise points, specifically liberals, that okay, we want a guy who's not a sexist, a guy who's not a, let's say, hater of the black people, a guy who doesn't hate immigrants, a guy who's like doesn't hate the Muslims. But if you actually look when Joe Biden and Joe Biden was elected president, 2 days later, an entire thread came out about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, which basically leaked out their past history of entanglements with, let's say they were taking certain fundings from sex offenders. So they took funding from them, and then when the cases were being piled up against this particular said sex offenders, then they were defending them in court because they hold power. And then Kamala Harris, mind you, has actually voted for escalating wars in Syria. And when you look at the entire narrative of the Democrat or the left, then they would want anything but to stop wars, let it be anywhere. So doesn't that go against their entire ideology? And then when you talk about Trump's military budget, his increase in spending over the entire military and enhancing his defense, Kamala Harris also voted for that. So when all these narrative of them, and also mind you, there was a violence against some transgender somewhere, and then there were some black non-violent cannabis users. Kamala Harris actually was very apprehensive against them, and she made sure that the black non-violent cannabis users were sent to jail. And that is actually entirely, let's say, I just listed on 5 pleasing points through which the Democrats actually got into the party, but then they have actually contradicted themselves in the process of building up to the position they are. Like they've done a lot of dirty work to get to the position where they are, and they want to represent the values that they've actually worked against. So when these things happen, as citizen of the country, you start losing hope at all for the upcoming future. I think that would be a good note to end this session on because
Yeah, that's a
that's
good note.
basically where most of us are at right now.
Exactly. It's very complicated to be very specific. All right. So here we near the end of the session. I, Rishali, thank both of you to be here. And also,
Thank
guys,
you.
if you like the theme of this topic, of this discussion, left, right, and center, do check out our next edition that will be out tomorrow. Also, if you want to get featured in the next edition of HOV, DM us or comment below. Thank you so much. Have a good day till then. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye, guys. Thank you.